All right, you can see we've got a glow there. Or you can wave it back and forth, however you wish. We've got flame, and just make sure you try to get everything covered up good. Now, very important. Hello, welcome to WayPoint Survival. Today, I'm going to show you a survival trick that has long been forgotten and most people don't even know. Stay tuned. For those of you who don't know, Simon Kenton was an early frontiersman in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. He spent a lot of time right here in Ohio. As a matter of fact, the large creek that borders our property was one of the creeks that he was brought up when he was taken to run the gauntlet at Chillicothe 5 different times. He was an amazing man, 6'5", broad-shouldered, and fit for the wilderness if anybody ever was. He came originally from Pennsylvania. He was about 20 years younger than Daniel Boone, but they did hunt together, and at least one time he is credited for saving Daniel Boone's life in a siege on Fort Boonesborough down in Kentucky. Many times Simon Kenton, when hunting in the wilderness, would go out the evening before and find a good spot where he would crouch for hours waiting for daylight so that he didn't make any sound or movement going into the woods when he was hunting. And sometimes the temperature dropped way below zero as he was sitting there crouched with his blanket around his shoulders. If it hadn't been for a trick that was shown him by John Yeager on their first winter out on the Kanawha, he would surely have frozen to death on more than one occasion. And this simple but ingenious trick I want to show you right now. The first thing that you need to do is you need to locate a white oak. Now, white oak is the best, and there's a reason for that. White oak bark burns, has a lot of heat for the type of bark and wood that it is, but it smokes very little, and that's super important to this survival trick. White oak bark, you can tell, is a little different than red oak. As you can see, the way the lines in the tree kind of go in and out together like this in the bark. And what Simon Kenton would do would take his tomahawk and simply remove some of the bark. You don't want to cut into the tree. Again, we're not trying to damage the tree at all, but all we're doing is we're coming in here with a tomahawk and we want to get under some of this bark. All right, so you can see right here, we've already gotten a few pieces. It's nice and dry. It's going to be dry pretty soon after a rain because of the wind and all of that. And of course, in the wintertime, this is a great survival trick to know. So you really need to learn to understand what the difference is between white oak and red oak bark. After a sufficient quantity of bark had been harvested, be piled neatly in a place up against a tree perhaps, the same tree that you had skinned the bark off of. Before we go too much farther, I just want to take a moment and remind you to make sure and sign up for our WayPoint Survival and Prepping 101 newsletter. You'll find that at our website at waypointsurvival.com. Absolutely full of great survival and prepping information. You don't want to miss it. Completely free. Make sure and go there and sign up today. Next, using the tomahawk, you would harvest a digging stick. Something that you could use that would be sturdy and strong. It would fit well in the hands. It would not easily break. Next, you need to begin to dig a hole in the ground, and you want it to be about the size of your head. Now this can take a little while with a stick, but it can be done. You want to make sure that you don't use your tomahawk for this. Tomahawk would only be used for this in an emergency. And go ahead and clear away some of the debris, and again, start digging. Now don't throw this dirt away. This is to be a stealth fire, so you don't want a lot of visibility that you've been here. Not only for yourself, but also back in the day, Simon Kenton always had to be wary of enemies that might be out to try to get him. When you get this dirt dug out, go ahead and just lay it to the side very carefully. Don't scatter it around. This would also be extremely useful if you were, say, getting ready to be caught out overnight, there was a blizzard or a storm coming in. You would definitely want something like this. Of course, when you're digging, you want to be careful that you find a place that's soft enough. If you get into a place where there's a lot of roots or a lot of rocks, that's going to make it a lot more difficult. All right, so when you're done, you should have a hole, again, about as big around as your head and about as deep. So that's a good rule of thumb to think about when you're making this. All right, next we need to get the blanket. And a lot of your early frontiersmen, they traveled with only a blanket. They didn't have a bunch of other stuff. They didn't have shelters. A lot of them slept out in the open. There were a lot of larger trees back then and a lot of hollow logs. And so they did have that advantage over us today. Almost all of our big stuff has been logged out. But you go ahead and undo this. Take the leather thong off. Hold it in place. Unroll the blanket. Of course, keeping everything close to hand. The flintlock with the powder and lead and shot would all be right here, along with the shot pouch. Easy to hand. The tomahawk as well, placed with its mask on to the side. And then you would take your blanket and you would want to put it around your shoulders like this. And this is so when you make your flint and steel fire, it helps protect anybody from seeing the sparks and gives you a little bit of more of a stealth camping idea. Of course, we carry flint and steel as well as some tinder. All right, the first thing we need to do is you want to get a couple of pieces of our bark. We're going to put it in the bottom of the hole, and that's to make sure that our fire doesn't get put out by all of the dampness that's in here. And then, as you can see, we've got some jute here. All kinds of things that you could use, and we'll put that down here in the hole on top of our bit of bark there, and that will help keep the wind from blowing it away after we get it started. Opening the flint and steel kit, we see here that it's carried in a leather pouch and a tobacco tin, a brass tin. Opening it up, see the flint as well as the striker and some charred cloth. Could be any type of thing that you would want to char. Place it on top of our flint. All right, you can see we've got a glow there. Get a good view of that. All right, now I want to put it into this bundle and then blow on it, or you can wave it back and forth however you wish. We've got flame. Now we take our twigs that we collected, we go ahead and put them on there, get that fire going. And you're going to get little tiny dry twigs because you want to make sure that it's going to catch as soon as possible, and the smallest, driest twigs will burn the fastest. Pretty soon you'll have a good blazing fire. And you want to just feed that with some sticks, not anything real big, stuff like that, until you can get a good bed of coals. You'll let that burn for just a few minutes. While the fire is burning down there and getting some coals, you'll get a couple of sticks, maybe a couple of hand spans long and about as big around as your thumb. So just a couple of sticks, preferably dry sticks. Again, you can see about how long they are, something about like that. That's going to be important here in just a minute. All right, as you can see, we've got a nice little bed of coals down in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our white oak bark and we're going to stack it. A layer this way and then a layer that way. So crisscross fashion, all the way down. Just all the way across and then crisscross it. And that, of course, is good for airflow. You want to try to fill this up all the way across. It's a little bit hard to see because of the smoke. But as I said, literally I'm laying them side by side like this, and then I'm taking other bark and I'm coming across it like that. So just crisscross down across the bottom, and you want to fill the hole up as far as you can get it. Now before you go too far, these sticks that we had here, you want to put one in one side all the way to the bottom and another in the other side opposite all the way to the bottom. Okay, like that. So a stick here and a stick here. So on each side, opposite sides. And then you keep stacking your bark. All right, so there's a close-up of what it looks like stacked crisscross on top of those coals. Now, I'm going to take the dirt and very carefully and loosely pile it on. Okay, we are not trying to smother the fire. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and put it on like this. Hence the importance of these sticks we put on each side, here and here. All right, once you get that on there pretty good, go ahead and press it down so that it doesn't collapse in on itself. You want this to be fairly tight. All right, so down like that, and just make sure you try to get everything covered up good. Now, very important, we need to make sure this is pressed down around these sticks, and we're going to pull them out, making sure nothing falls down in that hole. And you want to twist it a little bit like this. Make sure you've got a good hole in there, so when it comes out, you can see that smoke starts to come out. I don't know if you can see that or not, but we've got smoke coming out of both here and here. Now, this is not like a Dakota fire hole. Some people think, oh, that's just a Dakota fire hole. No, that's two holes with a tunnel between them. This is one hole with two air hole sticks right here. And you want to try to make sure that you keep any dirt or debris out of these air holes as much as possible. That's very important. All right, so now we've got this coming. I can feel the heat coming out of here, and this is going to continue to smolder. And of course, what Simon Kenton would do is you will sit over the fire cross-legged. So you sit down like this with your legs open, and you can sit cross-legged however you wish, making sure that your blanket, of course, is over top of your head and shoulders, so you can bring it all the way over the top. You sit like this over the hole. You bring your tomahawk inside, as well as your shot pouch, your powder and lead, and of course the flintlock, which we've got back here behind us. It's all just here in one nice spot with the straps hung over the edge of the barrel. And you put this behind you perhaps, you know, so you don't want to keep your powder and everything close to where your fire was. But you put it back behind you to one side, and then you take the blanket and you put it over top of yourself and cover everything. You want to tuck your legs in as far as you can, making sure that you keep everything out of the weather. And Simon Kenton called this making a little room. And it is said that many times he would doze like this in a sitting position, and he would wake in the morning with an inch or two of snow on top of him in his blanket, and so warm inside the little room that he had no idea that it had even snowed. And he spent many a night in sub-zero temperatures just like this. Now folks, this really works. You can see the smoke and the heat still coming up out of the holes here, and as it continues to smolder throughout the night, I've gotten as much as 18 hours out of one of these configurations without adding any more bark. That's pretty phenomenal. It's pretty low impact. It doesn't really hurt the tree. Of course, you don't want to just skin one place. You want to get several trees, and don't make sure and debark a whole tree or anything like that. But just the outer bark. You don't go to the inner bark, the cambium layer, or anything like that. Just the outer bark, skin it off, stack it crisscross, and it is absolutely remarkable how much heat comes up out of here after you get it stacked right and once it gets to smoldering really good. That feels really nice. And again, basically, after it smolders down a ways, there's literally no smoke coming out of here, so it's not going to be a big deal. And of course, you can always open up the front of your blanket if it gets a little too smoky. Well folks, thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little lesson into the past, and I think a great survival skill that you can use today with no problem. You don't have to be dressed in 18th century garb to make it work. It just makes it look a little more authentic. And for those of you that have enjoyed my 1790s series, this is actually what started the entire series, and I'm just now getting around to making the video that was the genesis of the entire idea. Also, it's 21 degrees outside and snowing a little bit. It's quite chilly, and so something like this, that little bit of heat coming out of there, it's way more effective than just a candle or something like that that you would hunch over. This actually has significant heat, and as I said, lasts for quite a long time. This is James Bender for WayPoint Survival. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also make sure and check out the links in the description box below, just under the More button. While you're down there, you'll find our link for our WayPoint Survival digital class. And this is where you can train in the comfort and convenience of your own backyard the top 20 skills that we consider to be the most important from our Phase 1 Survival and Bushcraft class. You'll also find where you can sign up for our WayPoint Survival and Prepping 101 newsletter. It comes in your inbox at least once a week, if not sooner. You're going to like it. It's just absolutely full of great survival and prepping information. You don't want to miss it, and it's absolutely free. You'll also find our WayPointSurvival.com link where you can sign up to take in-person training classes at our beautiful training facility here in Southern Ohio. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the channel. We'd really appreciate it. And when you do subscribe, make sure to press that bell button so that you can stay notified of all of our upcoming videos, and we'll talk to you next time.